Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are diving into a crucial topic that can significantly enhance the performance and efficiency of our microservices architecture. That is caching in YARP API gateway. If you haven't seen our previous video on configuring the YARP reverse proxy in our API gateway, then make sure to check that one out first for a solid foundation. The link can be found in the video description. So why is caching essential in microservices API gateway? Caching can drastically reduce the load on your backend services, improve response times, and enhance the overall user experience. By storing frequently accessed data closer to the client, you minimize redundant processing and network latency, making your application faster and more resilient. So in this video, we're going to explore how to implement output cache and also caching middleware in our YARP API gateway. I'll provide you with the practical steps and insight to optimize your API gateway performance. So let's get started. Now let's first look at how to implement this output cache. Output cache refers to a mechanism that stores the output of a request so that subsequent requests can be served faster without the need to recompute or refetch the same data. When a client makes a request, the API gateway processes the request and generates a response. With output caching, this response is stored in a cache. The next time a request for the same resource is received, the cache response is returned immediately, bypassing the need to contact the backend services. This significantly reduces response time and server load. So let's see how we're going to implement this. Now, in our previous video, we created our solution. We added 3 projects. So we have 2 APIs and 1 web empty project, and that is what we call, or we know it as, our API gateway. We configured that in there. And now this time around, we're going to implement our caching. Now, this output cache was introduced by Microsoft, and you don't need to install any third-party library to get this done. You can do it straight ahead. Now, what we want to do here is we need to implement this cache in all the various services. So currently, we have 2 services in here. That is the Order API and our Product API. How do we implement caching in there? Before we test for that, let's make sure we introduce delay so that when we make a request to these various endpoints, it can take about 4 seconds, 5 seconds to retrieve this content. Then we're going to implement caching and see how faster and how flexible this is going to be. Let's check it out. So first, let's go to our Product API. Now in our controller, we have this as our product that it returns when this method is being called. Now within that, to make it delay, we have to introduce task delay. So let's make this an async, and this should be a task. Aside from this, let's have an await, then our task.delay. So we're going to delay this for 4000 milliseconds, which is 4 seconds. Let's do same to the other API. So we go to our other API controller as well. And in here, let's also implement the same thing. So we make this as task. And then we can go ahead and introduce that. So await task.delay. Then let's have this as 5000 milliseconds. Okay, so we have this. Now, when we run both projects, let's see how it's going to work. So they are ready, and as you can see from this, we have our Product API, we have our API. So I have a postman in here. Let's make a point to this, a call, so we can check the time that is going to take. The time is going to be found in here, so we can check here for response time. Now let's pick our other API. So first time we make a request, it's going to delay about the 5000 milliseconds, which is 5 seconds, before the data has been retrieved. So we can grab this to check the actual response time. Let's paste it in here and make a call, that is get. Now let's wait and see the time that's going to take to get this response. So it is taking 5 seconds and 0.3 milliseconds, right? Let's also have a look with the product. So let's change this to product. Make a request. Okay, so API, the product is running on 5001. And this is also taking 4.12 seconds, right? So we have 4 seconds and 12 milliseconds. So we can get this from the API gateway, and it is running on the port of 7000. So in here we have it in the form of HTTPS. Now with the same product, if I make a call, it's going to take the same 4 point, even more than the 1.2. Let's see. So 4.20. If I try to get the other API, I try to get it, it's going to take more than 5 seconds. Great. So you can see we have 5.03 seconds. So you can see that here, anytime a client makes a request, it's going to delay for this number of seconds. Let's assume here a huge data is being processed. So you need to take time and now process this data before it returns to the client. So it means that every client or every request has to delay it for about 4 or 5 seconds, which is not best to improve the performance of our microservice. So that is the reason why we have to introduce caching. Now the caching here is going to store the request or the response from the API, and I'll save it in there. So when the next time the user tries to get the same content, then first it goes to the cache and now it returns the response. So no need for any computation again. It is done already. Good. So let's see how you can do that. Now we have 2 APIs. So let's go to the various APIs and implement this output cache. Implementing output cache here is quite simple. All that you need to do here is to go to your program.cs file for the other API, and then in here let's add this output cache service. So you can do it at builder.services .add output cache service, and that is all. Now you need to add the pipeline. So here we're going to say app dot, and we're going to have use output cache. That is all. Now let's do same to the product API. We go to the program, and now we're going to add output cache. Let's add the service as well. And that is all. Now the next thing that you need to do here is to specify the verb, or if you want to cache the whole controller action method, or you want to make it a specific. Let's say, so currently we have only one endpoint in here. So this is what I'm going to do. We can put this output cache attribute on top. Let's grab this. We go to the product controller, and also let's put this output cache attribute here. Now that we have this set and done, all that we're going to do here is to run this application. So let's run this and check it out. So let's see, we have it. This is a reference has been added already. All right, so we can run this and check it out. So we have this running, as you can see from here. Now, in order for us to know the number of time that's going to take to return this response, let's use the postman. So from this order, the first time that we're going to make a request is going to take about 5 seconds, because we're delaying actually for 5 seconds. Now the next request is going to take less than that. Have a look. So we're going to get an order from our gateway, configure using the YARP. Now let's wait and see. We are going for the order. Basically, we're delaying for 5 seconds, and it's going to add some more. So you can see we have 5.57 seconds, and that is the time. Now here, it's going to cache for about 60 seconds. So within that, let's see what to do. If I click on this again, check it out. It took about 40 milliseconds. Click on it again, 40 milliseconds. So you can see that here, the time that it takes to respond is quite simple, right? And now it's taking less time to return the content. So until 60 seconds is up, we can still have access to this data quick. Let's see. You can see it is still working, and here it is not even half a second. It is taking about just 7 few. So you can see we have it in here. Okay, now until 1 minute or 60 seconds elapse, this cashier will still be there, and all subsequent requests are going to get it. Now, since the time is up, you see now it's going to make another call, and after this call, it's going to also cache it again. So 505, click on the next call, we have about milliseconds. So this is working. Let's check our product. So make a call. It has to take 4-some seconds to finish this for the first call. Subsequent one should take less than that in milliseconds. And great, we have it. So this is also working. How do you customize this to define your custom second that you want to wait for? Maybe you don't want to delay for 60 seconds. You want to delay for maybe 24. That's 24 hours, right? Or maybe you should specify this in seconds. So you have to calculate for 24 hours, 50 seconds, and pass it in there. Maybe you want to wait or cache it for about an hour, maybe 2 hours or half a day. How do we do it? It's quite simple. You go to our output cache, and then here we can specify the duration. So you say duration. So if you need, this must be in seconds. If you need for 1 hour or 2 seconds or whatever, 2 minutes, then that is a 120, because there is 60 for 1 second. So you have 120 for about 2 minutes, right? And this can be cached in there. You can just check the number, the hour that you want to cache it for. You can write it into seconds, and now you pass it in there. And now this response is going to cache until that time. So this is quite simple. Let's maintain the default one. So that is a way of caching this. But the issue here is, when you have multiple API services, you need to go and implement this caching in all, right? Now, how do we have a single cache which will be responsible to handle all requests? That is the reason, that is why you need this caching middleware. Now, this caching middleware is going to implement this memory cache, and that is going to cache the content here as the output cache is doing in the server's memory. And all the subsequent requests are going to be cached. So we don't need to even have the output cache attribute or even the service in each API services. All that you should do here is implement that caching mechanism. That's the middleware enough. It's going to scrap this one and cache all responses from any other service that you have added to your microservices. So let's see. Now let me comment this in here. Let's go to our other API. Then let's also comment this. Let's go to the various program files. And now let's also comment this output cache middleware and add the service. So that is for the product. Let's check for the other API. Also do same to this. You want to make sure it is in default state, so there's no caching implemented. Now let's save everything. Let's run it again and test it out. So let's click on this. We have it already. So we're going to make a call again to this product API, and it should take about 4 minutes. That's 4 seconds. Yes. The next call, the same 4 seconds. You can see that. So there's no cache implemented here because we have commented that. Let's also check for the other API, and I'll make sure it returns 5 seconds. The subsequent one should also follow the same number of seconds used. So the 5.26, and let's see, it should be 5 and over. So let's check. Yeah, 5.04. So it means that caching here is not implemented. Yes, we know that. So let's go implement the caching middleware. Now, on the other hand, there is a component that can be added to the request processing pipeline of your application. Talking about the caching middleware. Now, middleware components are typically used to handle cross-cutting concerns such as login, authentication, but in this case, it's going to be caching. Caching middleware intercepts incoming requests and outgoing responses. So it intercepts both the incoming requests and also the outgoing responses, allowing it to cache the responses and serve cache content for future requests. So it can be configured to handle different caching strategies by having the expiration properties, policies, and a whole lot. Okay, we're going to look at the basic ones. So basically, we will use a middleware to handle this cache system. All right, let's go and implement that as well. So the next thing I'm going to do here is let's create a caching service to handle that. And let's add an interface and add the implementation. So we're going to do that in the API gateway. So you open that one. Now let's create a folder and name it as caching. Now within this folder, let's create a class or maybe an interface. So add an item. And in that, we're going to make sure that it is interface. That is what we're going to select. And now let's give it a name. iMemory cache service could be okay for this. iMemory cache. Then once we have this, we can have access to two interfaces. The first one here is going to be set cache and also get cache. All of these are going to return. Maybe the first one, the set here, is going to return void because it returns nothing. So we need not to return anything. Okay, after I set it, and that is all. So let's have a look at this, and we're going to say this is void, then set cache. And now in here, let's provide the key that we need to retrieve it. And also let's provide a value. So let's make it as an object because you might not know the type that is going to keep. We say this is value. Then aside from that, let's specify expiration. So this, we're going to make it in the form of an integer. So you can calculate and now provide it in here. And we say this is an expiration in seconds. Okay, so that's our first interface. Let's have the second one, and that is also going to return string. And we say this is get cache. And now in that, all that we do here is to provide the key. That is all. Let's create an implementation for this. So right click on this. Maybe I can grab the name here. That is what I'm going to use. And now within here, maybe I'm going to have a look at it. So I'm going to say public. And there is a class. Let's paste this, which is going to inherit from this iMemory cache service. In that we need to implement the interface, and we have it. Okay, so now with this that we have in here, all that we need to do again here is to inject our iMemory cache. So there's an interface, and that's the iMemory cache. We call this as memory cache. Now in this get cache, what are we going to do? We can say that let's return. Maybe here, what we're going to do here is we have to get this memory cache dot then get, and now all that we need to do is to specify the key. But this is going to return an object. When you check out, it's returning an object. This get returns an object, and here we want to return string. So let's cast this object to string. How can we achieve it? Just cast it in here to string, and that is all. So this could be on a single line using this lambda expression, and we are good to go. So we can remove this. Now let's set it. So how are you going to set this? We're also going to say that this memory cache dot set, this can also be lambda. So we're going to say this memory cache that we have in here dot set. And now with this set, what are we setting? Let's provide the key first. The value goes. So provide the value that we have in here. And at the end of the day, you have to add your datetime offset. That is the expiration time in seconds. Okay. So let's have datetime offset at dot now dot. So add seconds to this. And now let's provide the expression in seconds parameter that we have at hand. And that is all. So we have two methods implemented, that is set and get for our cache system. Great. So now that we have this, the next thing I'm going to do here is we need to register or create DI between the interface and the implementation class, which is this. So copy the interface, or you can even stop it. You come here and now let's add it. So within this one, what are we going to do? We're going to say that builder.services .add, let's make it a singleton, so we can create just an instance for all. Then we pass in an interface, and then which goes with our implementation. And then we close this. So we have it registered in here. Now, what do we need to do again? We have to go ahead and use this memory cache service in our pipeline. Now, we're going to create this middleware specific to this proxy. So we're going to specify that in here. So let's map the reverse proxy middleware to the pipeline. And we have mapped this already, but in that we need to make sure we have this configured. So let's say this proxy pipeline. Let's specify that. Then with this proxy pipeline, we need to make an extension. And so let's add a custom middleware to the proxy. And now in here, okay, we're going to say we need to have a proxy pipeline. That is this. So .use, and now with this, let's specify this should be an async. We need this. That's a context. And this next keyword. That is what middleware takes, the context and the next keyword to execute the next pipeline. And this maps to, we need to also expand same. And on here, what we are saying is first, let's make sure that we retrieve the caching service from the request service provider. So let's do that. We're going to say this cache service. Then we're going to have this context dot, then we can have request service dot get required service. Then let's specify this memory cache. So here we want to get this cache service. After we have this, then what I'm going to do quickly, let's attempt to get maybe a cache response. Now this response is going to be based on the request path. So based on the request path. So the request path can be extracted from this context. As soon as a request comes in, we can get the request path, and that is URL to that endpoint which the client has issued. Okay, so once we have in here, let's try to put in the actual code to do that. So we can say this is cache response, and now this we're going to say is equal to the cache service. Since we have the cache service implemented already, cache, not a response, this should be a service. So cache service dot get cache, and now here we need to get the path. So we can get it from context dot request, then we can extract the path from here, this string, so we can get it. All right, so here with our cache response, this is what we need to do. Let's now go ahead and check. So we say that if a cache response is found, let's use it. Okay, so if cache response is found, then let's use that. So let's check, and we can use that. This is a string, so we can check string if it is not string dot null or empty, and that is our cache response. Then we want to go ahead. So here, all that we're going to do here to set the response content type to JSON. So set the response content type to JSON, and let's do so. We say content. What's the context? This context that we have intercepted dot response. This return to user. So dot content type. Then we can say this is application/JSON. So application. Then we have our JSON configured. Aside from that, let's now go ahead and I'll write the cache response to the response body. The response body. So how do we do that? It's quite simple. Have your await, then context.response. And aside from that, you can have write async. So context.response.write async. And now within that, let's pass in our cache response. And that is all. So as soon as it gets the cache and it sees it is there, it's going to return it. But what if in case it isn't? That is where we need to implement this else. So else, what are you going to do? Let's set the response, or let's store the original response body stream. Okay. So we have to extract the response body from the context. So let's say we need to store this. So we're going to say that there's a var, and we're going to have there's the original response body stream. And now with this, we're going to say this equal to this context that's coming in dot response dot body. So we have this body at hand. What are we going to do again? We're going to create a new memory stream to temporarily hold the response. So let's do that. Let me fix this original. So in here, let's create a new memory stream to temporarily hold it. Yeah, so we're going to hold the response. So here we're going to be using this using keyword. Then let's have our var response body. Then it's equal to new memory stream. Now with this memory stream, this using here is going to kill it as soon as it is done. So let's go and replace the response body stream with the memory stream. So replace the response body stream with the memory stream. And in that, this is what we need to do. We're going to say that this context dot response that we have in here dot body, then we're going to assign it to this response body that we have. And after we are having this, we need to call the next middleware in the pipeline. So we hold on, so call the next middleware in the pipeline. So we say await, then next. Okay. Now after it has gone and now it has come back as a response, what do we need to do? So let me fix this. Let's reset the memory stream position to the beginning. So here let's do context. So this is a context dot response, then dot body, context dot response. Now with dot body, so we can have seek from this, and now with this seek, we set it to the beginning in here, and I say seek origin dot begin. So we do that. Now the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to read the response body as a string, because here it is coming in the form of object, so we need to convert it to a string so we can return. We can pass it to the JSON context and I return it. Okay, so let's have our response. And we say response body text. We say this equal to await the new stream reader. So since you have it in the stream, we can read it in there. So we say stream reader, and let's specify our context dot response body, context dot response dot body. Then we can have dot read to end async. So let's read everything that we have in there. And after that, we want to create a cache key for this, so we can cache a response before I return it. So create a cache key. Then we're going to say that this is our cache key. Now the cache key, what we need to do here is to get it from the request path, and we can get it from this context dot request. So we can have it from the request, not respond. Request dot, then we can have the path. Now with this, we need to convert to a string so we can have it. Okay, then let's store it. So we can have this cache service dot, and then we have a method known as set cache as an interface in it. And now with this, it needs a cache key, so provide it. It needs a value that is an object, and now here we have it as response body test already, because it's a test that we've read and we have it at hand. Then let's set our expiration time to maybe 60 seconds, which will be in seconds at 60. Then that is all. All right, so once you're done, all that you're going to do here is let's copy the content of the memory stream to the original response body stream. So how do we do that? We're going to have an await, then we're going to have a response body dot copy to async. We use copy to async, and I'll specify the original response body stream, and that is all. So this is all that we need to do to make sure that our cache will be working. Okay, so now that we're having this, what we need to do again, we can just put a breakpoint. So this point here is going to work when cache exists. If it isn't, then this point is going to get to work. So let's see, I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Maybe the if, that is going to return, but else it means the cache here is not found. Now let's check this out. So let's give this, before we do that, this must be the debugging mode because we cannot use this. So let's stop. Let's make sure it runs. It stops it. Then we're going to configure it again and start in the debugging mode so we can check this point that we have configured in here. So let's click on this start, then let's go to configure startup project, and in here let's make sure we choose multiple startup project. Let's set each to start, apply this, and let's give this a run. All right, so we're having an issue here because I think we have done something wrong. Yes, we haven't added the memory cache. Since we're using that, we have to add it first. So let's say there's a builder.services.add memory cache. So let's save this. Let's try again. So this is ready. As you can see from here, we have 3 browser opened, and we have a product, we have the order, and lastly we have our gateway, right? So let's make sure we have this also working. Now let's try it. So we have this order. We're going to try this again, and initially it's going to take about 5 seconds to handle that. So let's say 5 point something seconds. The next line is going to get hit. Let's try it and see. So we click on that. All right, so we say that we have an error saying no service type for this has been registered. Let's cross check here, and we are getting the service required. We are getting this repo service, but we have injected this, so we need to use this interface. This is what we need to use. So let's make sure we have this instead. Okay, let's try this again. So let's have, now they are all active. Let's check it up again. Okay, so it's taking about 5 seconds to handle that, but we are not getting any response, although it worked, but we are not returning any response in here. So let's cross check it. Now in here, we start. Okay, so let's grab this, and after we're done here, we need to also set it. So maybe we can have it down here. After reading, let's reset. Okay, so we reset, we read. After that, it has to come back to the default state, and I believe this should work now. So let's uncomment this. All right, now let's give it a try. Okay, so as you can see from here, they are opened and we can now test it. So from our other API, we're going to test from our gateway, and now let's make sure it's wait for about 5 seconds. All right, so here we have it. Now it takes 5.41 seconds. If I click on it again, let's see whether the response caching is working. Okay, so it isn't because you have an issue unable to cache this object stream to this string. Let's set this response body text. We don't want to cache the response body, but rather the text. That's going to be in a string form. So in here, let's copy this response body text, and instead of this, we paste this here. I believe this solves it now. And let's give it a try. So let's save it, and now let's run this again. So let's try by getting others again. So yeah, it is taking 5.61 seconds. Now click on it again, and now we should have 178 milliseconds. Yep, so you can see the caching is working, and the time that it takes to return this data is very fast. So you can see that it's not as much as getting it initially. So it tells you that this caching is working. So you've seen how we can implement caching to our microservices using the output cache and also using this caching middleware in a YARP API gateway. So by leveraging output cache and caching middleware, you can ensure that your microservices architecture, it is not only scalable, but it is also incredibly efficient. In the next video, I'm going to talk about maybe load balancing. How do you balance load using this YARP API gateway? All right, so if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe for more content on microservices and actually .NET 8 as a whole. All right, thank you so much for watching, and catch you up again. Stay tuned. Till then, take care.